Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Cowboys edition of LANGERR at the Mike Live. It's been a really busy weekend across the NFL, and of course in Dallas Cowboys land, as it was Labor Day weekend, which is essentially cut day weekend or cut weekend in the NFL, where rosters are being trimmed to their 53-man roster, and players are getting cut, players are getting waived, players are getting injured, players are getting traded, players are going left and right everywhere around the NFL. So I'm going to try to cut this all down into one video according to what the Dallas Cowboys did, and I'm going to try to update as much as I can in terms of what the Cowboys did this weekend and how they trimmed their 53-man roster, at least for what it is now, ahead of their Week 1 matchup against the LA Rams. And I want to make this video now once all the dust has settled, because I could have shot live on Saturday or Sunday, and there would have been a change midway through, and I would have been already, by posting this, I would have been out of date here. So anyway, just wanted to wait till all the dust was settled before making this type of video. So let's get right into it. Here's a list of all the transactions that the Dallas Cowboys have done this past weekend. They have, let's start with players that have waived. So they have waived offensive guard Cody Wichmann, wide receiver Tevin Jones, defensive end Joe Jackson, who got claimed by Cleveland, linebacker Francis Bernard, tight end Kohi Katini, offensive tackle Isaac Alarcon, cornerback Chris Westry, cornerback Savion Smith, wide receiver Aaron Parker, fullback Sewo Olonolilua. I'll try to get that right eventually. Safety Luther Kirk, wide receiver John Johnson, center Marcus Henry, defensive end Ladarius Hamilton, defensive end Justin Hamilton, defensive end Rondell Carter, and cornerback Deontay Burton. Now, of all those players got signed to the practice squad, except for offensive guard Cody Wichmann and wide receiver Tevin Jones, who became, I believe, unrestricted free agents, and Joe Jackson got claimed by the Cleveland Browns. So that's good. That means most of these players that have spent a lot of time in Cowboys camp this year in 2020, they will stay in the program on the practice squad. They could get claimed by other teams, which we'll get into a little bit more in details. The practice squad rules, which are very different this year in 2020 compared to years past, but it's good that they're at least going to stay in the Dallas Cowboys locker room for the time being. The Cowboys also have released these following three players and then re-signed them. Again, part of the change in the NFL rules this year is the injury reserve rules, or IR lists, and the fact that players can be sent to IR for 3 weeks instead of a full season, or being recalled after 8 weeks. So to make room for those players before going on IR, the following three players were released: linebacker Joe Thomas, cornerback CJ Goodwin, and linebacker Justin March. So those three players were released, right, to make room for guys, I think it was Sean Lee, Lyle Collins, and one more. Who was it again? I'll get to that in a bit. That got sent to injured reserve. It was Ventel Bryant that got sent on injured reserve. So they had to be announced on the 53-man roster first before being put on 3-week IR instead of the season-long IR, which is why the Cowboys just released Joe Thomas, CJ Goodwin, Justin March for the time being, but then they re-signed them onto the active roster. The Cowboys also signed Malik Turner from the Green Bay Packers, and they also, last but not least, have signed cornerback, former Dallas Cowboy, cornerback and converted safety Brandon Carr to practice squad, which is not Earl Thomas. It wasn't the other Baltimore Ravens defensive back that a lot of Cowboys fans were thinking that the Cowboys would sign. It was Brandon Carr, former Cowboy Brandon Carr. And let's talk about that now. We're going to talk a little bit about the practice squad. We're going to talk about Brandon Carr for a little bit here. So let's get into the new practice squad rules going into this 2020 NFL season. So 16 players are allowed on a practice squad, and 6 out of 16 can be veterans of unlimited time, but they have to have played under 9 games per season. And that goes into the 3 categories of the practice squad. So number 1 is just conventional practice squad. Practice squad exception, that means players that are under 2 years of service time, and practice squad veteran. But the important thing out of all of this, the point to take away is that, and those things are pretty complicated, which honestly me too, I'm trying to understand, but the important thing is this: that teams can protect 4 players each week that cannot be claimed by other NFL teams. So 4 players that don't have to be on the 53-man roster, but that can also not be claimed by other NFL teams, signed away by other NFL teams. And also players can be promoted 2 times to the 53-man roster without going through waivers. So the Cowboys have protected linebacker Francis Bernard, defensive back Deontay Burton, fullback Sewo Olonilua, and defensive end Rondell Carter ahead of this Week 1 matchup against the LA Rams. So that means that for this Week 1, those 4 players, Francis Bernard, which again is honestly, I'm kind of surprised they didn't make the final 53-man roster, but it's good that he made the practice squad and got protected because he had a hell of a training camp. So yeah, Francis Bernard, Deontay Burton, Sewo Olonilua, and Rondell Carter are not on the 53-man roster, but they also cannot be claimed by another NFL team going into this Week 1 of the NFL season. And what also means is let's say Francis Bernard gets promoted to the active roster. He could be demoted back to the practice squad. That could happen twice before he has to go through waivers, which means that any team in the NFL can claim him. So that's what the waiver situation is in terms of the practice squad now. Now let's get a little bit into Malik Turner and Brandon Carr, the 2 newcomers to the Dallas Cowboys roster. So Malik Turner, in the last 2 years, he was more of a special teamer. He did have 2 receptions in 20 years in 2018 in 6 games, and he also appeared in 5 special team snaps. But it was 2019 where he appeared in 15 games where he posted 15 receptions for 245 yards, and he also added 170 special team snaps. So Malik Turner will be more of a special team guy. And the Cowboys are pretty good at wide receiver, at least in the top 4 right now, between Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson, Ventel Bryant, who will be on IR. I'll get into that in a sec. I think also Noah Brown made the roster. Just double checking that over here. Did Noah Brown make the roster? Yes, he did. Yeah, so Cowboys have plenty of depth at wide receiver right now, obviously injuries aside. So yeah, Malik Turner will just be more of a special teams guy, probably to replace Ventel Bryant, who will be placed on IR. We'll get into that in a bit. Brandon Carr now. That's interesting. So Brandon Carr will be signed to the practice squad, or he has been signed to the practice squad. And honestly, I like this. I really like this because Cowboys could have signed another defensive back from the Baltimore Ravens, like I just mentioned before. Could have been Earl Thomas very well. But you know what? Brandon Carr is a good conservative signing because compared to the baggage that Earl Thomas would have brought to this locker room, obviously, Earl Thomas is a football player, much better than Brandon Carr. But right now, we're not necessarily asking Earl Thomas, or we wouldn't be the need is there at safety. Don't get me wrong. The need is there at safety. But Earl Thomas, the baggage, the character, the locker room guy that was rejected by the entire Baltimore Ravens squad, who had to eat a ton of dead money just to get him off the roster, right? That Earl Thomas versus the awesome dude that Brandon Carr is, and the great guy that he's in the community, the great guy that he is in a locker room, right? Adding him to the secondary, adding him as a safety, and just putting him on the practice squad for now, right? Potentially promoting him to the active roster if need be. That is a much safer, better move for now for the Cowboys than Earl Thomas. But that being said, now is still the time to sign Earl Thomas versus Week 8 down the road in the regular season. So if Brandon Carr is going to be the guy, for now, that's okay. But the Cowboys are still weak at safety. The Cowboys are still definitely weak at safety. And Brandon Carr will be officially slotted in as a safety, having been a corner, obviously, for most of his career. But I think it's interesting to note that I believe he did play some safety in Rob Ryan's defense back in the day. That was back in 2012. So we'll see how that comes out to be. So anyway, so that's Malik Turner and Brandon Carr. Let's talk Randy Gregory. Of all of these things that happen, I mean, again, the cut down week of the NFL, or the week ahead of the NFL season where roster cuts are made, is the most eventful week of the NFL season because of everything that goes on. So lost in all this is that Randy Gregory did get reinstated. I mean, the NFL honestly the NFL just didn't handle that right. The NFL I don't see any reason why the NFL delayed that process for Randy Gregory as much as they did. So, but you know what? They finally got it right, and they finally reinstated him. And good for everyone for making it happen finally. Randy Gregory will begin. That doesn't mean he'll play against the LA Rams. He won't be able to. There's going to be an acclimation period for him. He can begin practicing officially with the team on week 4, and he can join the active roster as of week 6. Those are the terms in his conditional reinstatement. He also got extended by 1 year through the 2021 season, so good for him. Gets a little bit more time to prove himself. Now, here's my big question. Will he play right defensive end or right outside linebacker? Let's call that the right edge, just like he's been playing throughout his career thus far and like in his college career. Or will he be placed at left defensive end or left outside linebacker? Because the way I see this is right now you have on the right side, you have Everson Griffin. Behind him, you have Aldon Smith. Whereas on the left side, you have DeMarcus Lawrence. Right? And then what else after DeMarcus Lawrence? Dorrance Armstrong, sort of. And then Bradley and I in there on either side. So my question is, what it looks like, I guess he would be that 6th guy or that 5th guy behind either Aldon Smith or Bradley and I, Aldon Smith on the right side or Bradley and I on the left side. That's going to be the spot for Randy Gregory. Or here's the other thing is that I saw this, if let's say, you just want to put the 4 best pass rushers out in the field, well then sure, give me Everson Griffin, DeMarcus Lawrence, Aldon Smith, Randy Gregory. Those are your 4 best pass rushers out there, right? Right ahead on 3rd and long, right? Just go get the quarterback. Put Tank Lawrence, put Aldon Smith in the middle, put Everson Griffin and Randy Gregory on the edges. Let's just, have fun, right? Put your 4 best pass rushers on the field. Go get them. And that's where, just honestly, maybe it might not even matter, which we'll get into in a little bit as well, how the Cowboys don't really have a clear-cut starting lineup because their depth or a clear-cut depth chart because of how many sub packages they will likely have on defense and how, I guess offense is more structured, but defensively it could be, anything, really anything. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's get into some injuries for now. So what is of concern is that Sean Lee, Lyle Collins, and Ventel Bryant are going to be on the 3-week IR. Sean Lee, Cowboys can manage there. They have Joe Thomas behind Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith. And Luke Gifford is in there as well. And Justin March is in there as well. But what is of concern is Lyle Collins. Not much behind him. Not much behind him at all. So they're going to be on the 3-week injured reserve. And that's another new thing that this NFL season, the 3-week injured reserve, right? Doesn't mean, and that's obviously going to be crucial if there's COVID-19 issues that arise, right? But you could put as many players, injured players, as you want on the 3-week injured reserve, right? And that means that they just have to miss 3 weeks. They come back after that. You don't have to worry about losing them for the season. You don't have to worry about losing them for 8 weeks, right? And then bring them back after 8 weeks. Nope, just 3-week injured reserve, come back after that. What is huge, though, is that Xavier Woods, who has had a bit of struggles recently, at least in terms of his health and practice, he will be I read that he will be expected to play this Sunday against the LA Rams. So that is really big for the Cowboys. So now let's get a little bit more into this depth chart situation at tackle and safety. I'm going to talk about a little bit my surprises that have made the roster. I have, I believe, 4 of them, 4 guys that I'm a little bit intrigued by. I don't want to say surprised, let's say intrigued by that they made the roster. Quarterback Ben DiNucci, right? I honestly wasn't expecting the Cowboys to keep 3 quarterbacks. I didn't think the Cowboys were going to keep the 3. Look, Ben DiNucci was a 7th-round pick, sure. So I guess, look, good for him. I guess he played well enough to earn a roster spot out of training camp. So good for the Nooch. Rico Dowdle out of South Carolina, the running back. I thought the Cowboys were just going to keep Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, but good on them for realizing that, if you're not, it's a good idea to not run Zeke into the ground. And that Tony Pollard should be getting a lot of snaps behind Zeke, right? So, that means that there's a pretty okay chance that one of them might get banged up here and there. So, why not bring in a 3rd running back on the roster? And if Rico Dowdle is the best guy in camp, then sure, bring him onto the roster. And good Good to use a roster spot for Rico Dowdle and backed up those, the Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard, given that they will hopefully be getting, more. I mean, Zeke will be playing a lot, obviously, but hopefully Tony Pollard will get more meaningful snaps this year compared to last year. And tight end, Sean McKeon. I think the reason why Sean McKeon made the team, honestly, is because, you already have Blake Bell, you have Dalton Schultz, and you have Blake Jarwin, of course, at tight end already. But I believe Sean McKeon is there just because one of those other three guys will maybe rotate in at fullback. Because remember, Jameis Olawale did not make the team. He opted out. He opted out because of COVID-19. That's what I meant to say. He opted out. So that means that, I guess the way that the Cowboys are going to use the fullback spot now is they're going to rotate a tight end or two at fullback, and that will be the plan, at least, to fill the fullback spot instead of the guy they released, Sewo Olonilua, who is more of a fullback type of. He's more of a designated fullback, but they, I guess, decided to keep the extra tight end and rotate them in at fullback instead of our buddy Sewo Olonilua. I'll get the name right consistently eventually. And the other surprise, or the other interesting thing, is Terence Steele. Undrafted free agent. I mean, the only reason why I guess it's intriguing or surprising is the fact that the Cowboys don't have a lot of depth at offensive tackle. And that is concerning. The Cowboys don't have a lot of quality depth at swing tackle. And that's probably why he just made the team, mostly because of a numbers game. But good for him. If he was good enough to earn the spot, good for him. But that's where I'm going to get into now the weaknesses on the roster, the concerns the Cowboys have right now. And on offensive tackle with Lyle Collins being out, at least for these 3 weeks, it's going to be an adjustment. They're definitely going to have to adjust. I mean, at least I trust this coaching staff to deal with that more than the previous one with Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan, where it's like, oh, Tyron Smith is out. Okay, no problem. We'll just put Chaz Green in there, and we'll play like Tyron Smith. No problem. 1 sack, 2 sack, 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks later for Adrian Claiborne before they finally put in Byron Bell instead of friggin' Chaz Green there. I mean, so anyway, so I hope. Look, are the Cowboys going to have problems at right tackle with what they have behind Lyle Collins and Cam Irving, Brandon Knight, and Terence Steele instead of Lyle Collins? They probably will. But the good news is, hopefully, this coaching staff will adjust. They'll put a tight end to chip block there. They'll put a running back to chip block there and, help them out a little bit more. Hopefully that we'll see that instead of, having Cam Irving become a turnstile and giving up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks in a game. So hopefully the Cowboys will be able to make that adjustment. The other concern is safety, of course. Xavier Woods playing right now is huge. Xavier Woods is now a veteran on this roster, a 4-year veteran, 2017, 18, yeah, 4-year veteran on this roster, right? But if he goes down, the Cowboys are kind of screwed at safety. Nothing against Darian Thompson and Donovan Wilson, but they are a lot more improving than Xavier Woods at safety. So, and then obviously you have the corners, Daryl Worley, or the converted corners, Daryl Worley, Reggie Robinson, and maybe Chido Awuzie can also step in and play safety a little bit as well. But, if Xavier Woods goes down, the Cowboys are going to have a tough time. I mean, unless Brandon Carr could also maybe come in at safety, be promoted to the active roster. But I'd say in terms of the way the Cowboys built their roster, have done phenomenally at every position, except offensive tackle and safety, or offensive tackle depth, right, behind Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins, and safety. Those are the two biggest disappointments in terms of how the Cowboys built their roster this offseason, and we'll see how much it affects them going forward in 2020. A couple other things. Now, this was funny. I saw a little bit on social media chatter that the Cowboys don't even really know their own depth chart. I would say that's honestly a good thing, because that means the Cowboys are, they're not going to care who NBC Sunday Night Football is going to, announce in terms of the names, Dak Prescott, Mississippi State, right? Lyle Collins, US. Like they're not going to care, or Tyron Smith, US. Like they're not going to care who the media or who the starters on paper are, because the truth is the Cowboys aren't going to have like it won't really matter who the starters on paper are because it's going to be so fluid, especially on defense. Okay, on offense, you know what the depth chart is, you know what the quarterbacks are, you know the running backs are, you know the starting five on the offensive line will be besides right tackle, because if Cam Irving ends up being too much of a problem, then yeah, maybe Brandon Knight, Terence Steele could come in. You know, wide receiver is going to be Gallup, Cooper, Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson, etc. You know, tight end's going to be Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz, Blake Bell, etc. Right? But defense, who knows what the heck is going to be the package on defense, or who knows what the depth chart is going to be on defense, right? Because there's just going to be so many changes depending on the offensive set, depending on the opponent, depending on who the Cowboys are trying to match up against. There's going to be so much variability on defense, right, in terms of who's going to start on a given week. Because, again, it could be Anthony Brown out wide, could be Anthony Brown in the slot, could be Trayvon Diggs starting out wide if Cheeto plays free safety. It could be Jordan Lewis playing the slot, or maybe playing out wide if one of the DBs are being outplayed. Or like I mentioned before, it could be Randy Gregory playing with Everson Griffin and Alden Smith and Demarcus Lawrence in pass rushing sets, but then it could be Tyron Crawford, Dontari Poe, Everson Griffin, and Tank Lawrence in run defense sets, right? So it's gonna totally depend on the situation, totally depend on what the offense on the other side is showing, based on what will dictate the defensive starters. And that's, I would say, a good thing over a bad thing versus the whole, the whole Jason Garrett mentality of we're going to do what we're going to do, and we're going to run the ball, even if there's 8 guys or 10 guys in the box, we don't care. We're going to run the ball, and on defense, we're going to play the same cover 3 every single play. You know what's coming. I like the fact the Cowboys are most likely going to mix things up entirely compared to years past versus doing the same thing every single play on offense and defense. And the Cowboys were still 8-8 despite that. So imagine if the Cowboys actually mix it up now, how well they're going to be with an actual coaching staff that knows how to put players in their situation to succeed. And what else I want to get into here? So stars undefined. Again, like I said, totally depends on the situation. Should have maybe put the mic a little higher here. Pardon me. I've been hitting it a lot. But yeah, a couple other little things here. Number changes. Trayvon Diggs goes from number 31 to 27. The 27 vacated by Clinton Dix. Rico Dowdle takes number 34 from number 42. Bradley Anae goes from number 51 to 56. Terence Steele, offensive tackle Terence Steele, goes from number 74 to 78. And the captains will be announced on a week-to-week basis. They'll be different on a week-to-week basis, which is great because that means different players get different opportunities to be leaders. And come playoff time, then you'll have the same captains come playoff time, which the Cowboys will make. The Cowboys will make the playoffs this year. There's no doubt in my mind the Cowboys will make the playoffs at the very least this year, whether it's by winning the division or a wild card spot. There will be room for the Cowboys in the NFC playoffs this year, given the strength of the roster and given their improved coaching staff. And yeah, the other fun thing is that the Rams, I think it was, who was it again? Michael Brockers, I think, defensive lineman Michael Brockers said how the Cowboys, in terms of studying the Cowboys, the best thing that they had was to look at social media and DallasCowboys.com, the highlights that were posted online or on social media. Because, I mean, if you look at that Sunday scrimmage that ended up, that was supposed to be broadcasted live on the Cowboys website, but ended up not being broadcasted, that just shows the Cowboys are trying to not show their hand. And that means that any team that's going to try to prepare against the Cowboys will have very little film to watch. Because in week 2, right? The Cowboys playing week 2 again. Oh, yeah, I'm blanking out here. The Cowboys playing week 2. I got to know this. Oh, yeah, I have it on my phone. God darn it. Excuse me. Versus the Falcons, right? Opening the Falcons. So the Dallas Cowboys, right? When the LA Rams right now have only social media to base their film prep on in terms of going to their game, and then the Atlanta Falcons in week 2 will have just the LA Rams game to base their film study in terms of preparing for the Dallas Cowboys, and then the Seattle Seahawks will have only 2 games to base their prep on. So again, just the fact that this new coaching staff will have a lot of variability in terms of how they call their plays and run offensively and defensively will mean that opposing teams will have a nightmare of a time in terms of trying to dig up film to prepare for them. So advantage Dallas Cowboys. And that means the Cowboys should win this weekend against the LA Rams. I'm fully expecting the Cowboys to beat the LA Rams this year. Not to say the LA Rams will not be good this year. I think the LA Rams, they took a step back from the last couple of years. When they went in, I believe it was 12-4 in 2017, and then they made the Super Bowl in 2018, and then last year 2019 they just missed the playoffs. I think they're on the downswing. Still have a good roster, but they're trending downward. Right? Cowboys have a better roster. Right, so the Cowboys should take care of business, and again, the Rams don't have anything to any film to help prepare them for this week one matchup against the Cowboys. They have no film to study, right, or barely any film to study. So Sean McVay, especially looking for any little advantage they can get, will not have a lot to pick from, right? So again, the only thing that I've been saying that will stop the Dallas Cowboys is if it hurts themselves, the fact that that's a new system that they don't have a lot of time to prepare for it. But I'll probably make another video on that later this week, talking about how previewing this Cowboys versus LA Rams matchup. But yeah, so far I say advantage Cowboys for sure. And if the Cowboys don't take care of business, if the Cowboys don't take care of business against the LA Rams going this week one, then that will be a disappointment for me and all of Cowboys Nation. And not to say that they won't be able to bounce back from that because it's a long season, but it will be nice to see the Cowboys start off on a strong foot and win. But that I'll preview that in another video, hopefully later this week. But if you've been watching to now, thank you for watching this Cowboys edition of Langerr at the Mic Live. Again, I tried recapping everything that went on this weekend in one video, right? And if you like my commentary and if you want to hear more, then be sure to subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and send me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Mike Langerr. Post in the description below. And this has been a Langerr at the Mic Live Cowboys edition. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you again next time.